Two for the price of one. I've got two guests on the resolution room. Welcome Kim Wiegand and Charles Handley. Great to have you both. Now, I'm going to have a crack before we get into today's topic on business development, the market more broadly, and the future, importantly, in terms of talking about your background, because you have two different lenses, and that's why I wanted to bring you together. A great idea, Kim. You're backed by popular demand, I might add.
Am I though?
You are. You're backed by popular
I'll take
demand. So, Kim, you're the insider, I'm going to refer to as that. You've been someone who had formerly had a role at Ashurst as a global role in business development. Now you run Julep Advisory, and you've been a lawyer by background, but you've been in business development for many years.
Well, I'm not technically a lawyer by background, although I did study law at uni, and then I decided it wasn't for me. And the irony is I've obviously spent my career in law firms. So almost a lawyer, and then I feel like sometimes I won. I got out before I was locked in. But yeah, all things considered, legal land.
Gotcha. And now Charles brings a different perspective. So Charles is a recruiter, and he said off camera, recruiters are like hairdressers. People tell them everything. So what we want from you, Charles, is that perspective, because it's unique, your work. It's Dalton Handley is the name of your recruitment business. You've been in this space for 20 years, in Australia about 17, and it's really niche and bespoke, your recruitment work. It's in business development and marketing, particularly in law.
Yeah. Predominantly BD marketing and law, but also broader professional services as well.
So you've seen the landscape change and you've seen these shifts, and you're looking at the market now from that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are we seeing in the world of business development and the law?
If I look at, let's keep it to the big 8 law firms, there's certainly unevenness beneath the surface when it comes to BD and where I see BD going, and how those firms will accelerate as a result of the different structures and levels of investment in technology, and also the differing attitudes that partners have towards BD and strategic marketing across the big 8 firms. And I think that will play out over time.
So you think we're going to see those differences play out more starkly in terms of potential results and where people end up?
That's it. The outcomes will speak for themselves in time. Based on the groundwork that's been done in the, over the last couple of years, as we've started to see a significant shift in terms of technology, AI, automation.
And strategic marketing. And you set up something before we hit the record, Kim, which I thought was interesting. You were on the podcast a year ago now. Where do you see AI going in the law? Will it disrupt prices? Will it fundamentally change the business model? Are we close, or is it such a big machine with such strong vested interest that it's likely to be a way off?
I think it's a way off. I think it promises a lot.
Yep.
It promises a lot of disruption. I think it's going to take us a long time to get to the point of seeing it fundamentally shift the model.
And you said it's changed more rapidly than I anticipated back then. So
I fully anticipated coming today and saying, I will eat my words, Damien. Because when we spoke last time, we spoke a little bit around the change we're seeing in firms, particularly the AI, catalyst, and whether that's going to really impact, again, marketing BD teams, but more broadly, things like pricing strategies and billing, billable models, et cetera. And I was like, yeah, but not for a while. I think it's going to take us quite a long time to see the impact of that. Firms aren't moving quite as rapidly. Now, for a lot of firms still, and you said it earlier, Charles, AI is still like a fad. It's like, oh, this thing. It's really not. And those firms, particularly the top 8 or any with this, a more sophisticated client base and operating model, they are investing heavily. I don't know that they're investing heavily at this point with the view on how that impacts internal service delivery. They're investing heavily in terms of that firm to client engagement and the cost of services, et cetera, and AI within the firm to become more efficient, but actually seeing the layer beneath and how BD and marketing teams are really leveraging AI for efficiency and what that means for the value those operators can take to the business. I still think that's got a little ways to go before we see that really embedded. There are some firms who are quite loud and proud about saying they're investing heavily in their AI and other, tech stack, et cetera, around BD and marketing. And I think part of that is, and we spoke about this earlier as well, COVID. I was the BD and marketing director for a mid-tier firm during COVID. Every cool initiative, investment strategy, into the function that I had on at that point was shelved. Because they were so uncertain around where anything where the market was going, where the team was going.
And nervousness around cost,
Correct,
etc.
absolutely. And I think we came through that. A lot of firms obviously did very well during COVID, ironically. But what we're seeing now, I think, is that, okay, there's a real catalyst for considering where we're accumulating value and investing value back into the business. That's not just necessarily in AI, but more broadly in capability, systems, different kinds of roles. And you're seeing that.
Yeah, absolutely. There are different types of roles coming through. They're not particularly visible to the public market, but the conversations that I'm having with certain firms, there are a range of firms I work very, very deeply with for a significant period of time. There have been, alarm bells going off within some firms that have realized that this is not going away, and this is something that we really need to progress with. And there are firms that have invested in AI and then realize that when they start to put AI agents in place to try and automate or augment roles and automate executional work, they then have to look at the data because they're having issues. So there are certain firms that are really on top of that in the background, but also from a hiring perspective and bringing talent into firms. Some firms I'm actively working with and others I'm talking to about senior specialist operators. Quite often firms will look to, former heads of or directors that don't want to manage a team anymore, and they want to do really strategic work at a good firm with good people and just focus on doing strategic business development. And that's where I'm seeing the emergence of demand. Two of the more sophisticated firms in the market that I've worked with for a long time, they've been building out that senior layer for sort of senior top end for quite some time. So retaining really strong talent and then moving those people into senior specialist positions with or without people management responsibility. They've essentially evolved to become more of a commercial advisory function within the firm. And that's not just one firm. There are two or three that look like that. And there are other law firms that are following in terms of speaking to me. And there's been a shift rather than here's a brief, go and fill it. It's a case of, Charles, when you meet candidates who fit our culture, but also bring additional commercial breadth and something else, a different perspective, we'd really like to know about them. And firms are actually acting on that, where they're seeing candidates before roles being signed off in anticipation of that model playing out.
That brings me to the next point. That's fascinating, Charles, because it brings me to the next point about the differing skill set that you've seen in BD. I mean, it's much less now with tech. You made the point about investing in it effectively and having the data that underpins it being solid, but the execution can now be largely automated. Some of the more traditional roles that people cut their teeth on growing up in business development over time can be automated. AI can step in. So that elevates, if you like, the strategic skill set of a BD. And effectively what you're coming at, Charles, is almost like a thought leader, commercial advisor, thought partner. Is that a fair summary of where you think things will merge as well?
I think so. I hope so, because I think there's been a distinct lack of place to go for those individuals within firms who have that capability and maybe haven't had the expectations or cultural expectations from the firm they can provide that. It's actually in demand now. The higher value that you can deliver within a meeting with partners, how you're moving from, and I was chatting with Charles earlier about a proficiency model I'm working with a firm on, from sort of that foundation level within a role where you're delivering the tasks, you're doing the thing. You would pass probation, pass performance review, but then you've got, influencing. So you're moving further up that value chain of saying you'll be able to influence outcomes with partners. You're building your mindset and skill set around being curious, challenging, bringing solutions, not problems, ideas, forward thinking. And then you're moving up the value chain to advisor. And that's where actually you're in charge of the agenda. And that's where we're seeing sophisticated firms and operations move. And the more we move up that value chain, I'm seeing operators, and I'm working with one international firm at the moment around how they're using AI and their tech stack and the resources that they have available to be the most impactful versions of themselves. So how do they move up that value chain? And they're using it like, here's all of the content, here's the client plan, here's the sector industry analysis. I've got to go speak to the partner. What are the 3 points I need to raise on their agenda? And AI is shaping their conversation. So they're walking in that without having to go and do reams of research and whatever. they're walking in and they are so impactful in that meeting with partners, getting the partners to think about something differently or saying, could we try this? But that comes with a mindset shift as well. So it's not just, hey, here's a tool, go use it. It's a, how do I use this tool to my advantage to be the most impactful and value added version of my role? The tools are there now, and the partner expectations, I think, are shifting. To Charles's point, I mean, those roles I think are going to become more and more prevalent, genuinely.
Yeah. There's definitely an appetite, and as part of a lot of the briefs that I take, some of the more sophisticated and forward-looking firms are looking for that strong commercial acumen. They're looking for senior operators who understand how the firm makes money
Yeah.
at different parts of the economic cycle. The level of success varies depending on the realities that exist within the firm. So that might be the brief from, say, a CMO, and perhaps the practice group or sector group leader. There are varying levels of success. So, for example, in some firms, that's worked really well, and commercial operators have gone in and really driven progression if there's been the appetite across the group that they're working with. However, there is still occasions where really talented individuals are hired on a high salary, and it's a strategic role. They've been through 4 or 5 rounds of interviews, and then they get into the role, and they're still getting bogged down with execution. That has started to shift over the last 6 months, as I think the pennies really started to drop, given that not just there's the realization that AI is here to stay, but firms have now been through the testing process with various different systems, and they're actually starting to implement them now.
That's interesting.
Where senior commercial operators have not only commercial capability to deliver from a BD perspective, but also they can break down the silos and the sort of fragmented P&Ls that exist within some law firms. That's where they're being successful.
And law firms, and we're going to talk about the future of partnership models, but law firms are inherently hierarchical, huh?
Yes.
Very hierarchical, very status driven. But what you touched upon, Kim, was interesting because in my other work, not my mainstay of my work, I'm a coach. And so you're really bringing senior BD are bringing a coaching mindset, aren't they, in their relationships with partners, helping them succeed. And that is very much a coaching mindset.
That's where, again, if you're looking at how you deliver value, being able to influence and shape partners' thinking on something, it doesn't mean you have to go in there saying you will do 1, 2, 3, but it's coaching them through a concept or a challenge or an aspiration. What are they trying to achieve? Not even senior operators, managers should be comfortable and confident to go in and ask questions. Again, it's the mindset of being, I'm going to be curious, I'm going to challenge them, I'm going to test them on things, I'm going to create some interest in something, I'm going to go find some research that might help them in their thinking. That's influencing. I think we should be prioritizing moving up that value chain within marketing and BD. That means, there's room to grow and change and evolve as professionals. And I do think we need to do that as professionals. I mean, even in my career, in the last 23 years of doing this thing within the legal industry, you've gone from organizing events and, even organizing the coffee and tea. I mean, genuinely, for anything, that's where we were and printing the things and the invitations to moving up to having a really valued place at the table around strategy and growth and investment. And we've come so far. Each individual and professional within that ecosystem has to keep evolving and shifting, and firms, I think, should be encouraging the shifts in mindset and technology adoption and investing back into their people. I think that's really critical.
Do you sense there's an increasing appreciation from partners on that skill set, or do you think it's got work to do? There's work
Both.
to do. Yeah.
I think it also depends on the firm.
It does depend on the firm. Coaching meant different things probably 10 years ago. Interestingly, the demand for individuals who can coach partners tends to come from the firms that are already very high performing. So they're looking for...
It's self-selecting, isn't it?
That's it. So, they already have partners who are great at what they do, and they're looking for people who can give them that light touch directional support. So, for example, some firms that are probably further down the curve that are looking for, they're looking for talent who can, inverted commas, coach, but actually it's sort of, coercing partners to
influence
partners to do things that they normally want to do. But for example, I introduced someone who had been a lawyer, worked in large law, but had also worked at a huge US consumer business that's known for innovation, and then had moved back to Australia and joined an Australian law firm. And after an exploratory discussion, it was the experience, it was the breadth of experience and that breadth of commercial
Yeah.
experience and the insights and perspective that person brought, and that gave me a really solid indication as to where that firm was actually genuinely.
So there was less of that clubby mentality about you've got to come from the law. So it begs the question, what do you think law firms can learn from other businesses outside of the law? And are they prepared to look at that?
They say they are. Very few act on it. Lawyers are typically risk averse. So if you have a short list of candidates, even if there's an excellent candidate who comes from
Outside.
broader services, and there's another strong candidate with law firm experience, naturally, 99% of the time, the hire will fall to someone who's got the law firm experience. Just on your point around other businesses that law firms can potentially learn from, because I recruit across broader professional services, I, seen what some of the engineering firms are doing and how they've progressed over the last decade. The progression within engineering firm BD functions and BD and marketing functions is actually really quite phenomenal in some cases. And then also looking at the accountancy sector, and the reason I recruit across all of prof services is because the skills are transferable between the different businesses. Grant Thornton is a perfect example of a firm that, although it took the CMO several years to get there, they have built a very, very sophisticated strategic marketing and sales enablement and client function, hyper personalized client experiences, very strong adoption of data to drive decisions, and also not only the systems and the processes that underpin BD clients' marketing sophisticated, but the partner's mindset is sophisticated in the sense that BD and marketing are the experts in the room when it comes to guiding them. And they've broken down the silos across the different service lines and sectors. So you've got partners that have, although they might be specialists in a certain area, they've got an awareness of
one firm mindset, right?
one firm mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And on that, like they have continued to invest, though. We were talking about this earlier. Like, Fraser's done an excellent job at continuing the investment in their data and their transformation around their tech stack and their skill sets and their sales enablement function. That has taken him many years and continuous commitment from the business to do that. Again, within legal, I really struggle to see many firms who have continuously invested in one agenda in terms of reinvestment back into business services. And you see it across not just legal, not just marketing and BD, but in IT. And it takes a data breach for them to go, oh, crikey, or, oh my gosh, we've got to move everything to the cloud. Oh, we've got to invest in all this. Or, as things evolve and there is a need, sometimes it's not the obvious, there's no burning platform, but we know if we don't, we will create a burning platform. And I think, again, whether it be COVID or others, many of the business services functions weren't invested in for a number of years. And when we talk about, catalysts and things for investment, gee whiz, the underinvestment in business services has been a long time coming.
You spoke about the lack of investment, and it's a feature, is it not, of at times the partnership model. It's very resilient. It seems to be sticking around. Do you think that need for investment ongoing is going to be perhaps the catalyst for change of the partnership model? Do you see it as the limiting factor, or do you think there's broader structural or cultural issues at play?
Many cultural issues, but that's a whole other podcast, right? No, I think there are many catalysts, I think, that are converging in one time. Ultimately, the word private equity makes people roll their eyes and go, oh gosh, she's talking about it again. It's actually nothing to do with private equity. I mean, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a tactic, a mechanism.
Yeah.
It's not the cause. It's a solution for some. The cause underlying it is actually other catalysts coming together. You've got one, AI and the intense impact on business model and billable model and resourcing and operating model. Like, that is shifting everything. That's got nothing to do with private equity. You've got, on the next sort of catalyst, you've got shifts to the partnership model, partly because we actually have a very aging equity partner model, a cohort rather, for most of those businesses where they have equity within a business. For them to exit, they need to sell their equity. is there the next cohort down going, yeah, I'm up for that. I'll buy your equity. We have the most mobile lateral partner cohort ever at the moment.
Yeah.
And the market is shifting, consolidating, opportunities are rising. Why would any young partner go, sure, I'm going to like mortgage my house and, or take huge debt facilities to make sure I can buy in your equity when I'm actually getting quite a nice salary at the moment, limiting their liability on that front. In which case, what happens to all these partners who want to exit in a few years? I spoke to an advisor the other day who's in the process or has just finished advising a client on selling his practice. He sold it for $25,000, even though it has significant ongoing client work, etc., opportunity, because he just wanted to sell the liability.
Yeah.
The evidence shows us when we look at what's happening in other countries, the third catalyst for this, in my mind, is the trends around investment and models, equity models, capital investment. That's changing. So I don't think that's the solution. I think it's part of the broader picture. What I see happening because of each of these models, or each of these catalysts rather, the way firms orientate themselves, the way they operate, they're sharpening. Grant Thornton's been doing it for years. They are sharp. They know who their target market is. They've got the tech stack and the capability and the team to support it. Their culture benefits from it and supports it and empowers it. That's a sharper model, right? PE didn't create that, but because now PE is investing internationally, and those firms are carving out the service lines that don't fit their model. And in some cases, and I'm working with a firm at the moment, an Australian firm who has done that independently, quite a progressive approach. They've spun off all of their high scalable, complex work, but at scale. They've underpinned it with proprietary software AI solution. They're putting it into its own business, and now they're going to bolt on and create shortly a platform out of that. I'm sure for investment, right? So that makes their corporate model that much more streamlined. Their operating model, the way that their partners bill, the predictability of it, it just makes them sharper. So my view on private equity is, yeah, sure, it's coming, but it's actually the other catalysts that align to it. But I don't know much about AI, to be really honest with you. I know more about governance models, and I'm learning a lot about the private equity space. And in speaking to a lot of US practitioners, we are now where they were 12, 18 months ago. They have a much harder regulatory model, like their framework.
Yeah, it's harder to get in.
Yeah, 100%. And it's state by state, and it's quarantined to that jurisdiction.
Still.
Whereas we don't have that here. And if you look at the top 50 firms in Australia, 25% of those firms are incorporated. They're not a partnership model. So they can incorporate, they can have investment tomorrow. Majority of the top 50 firms have a service business, could become an MSO. We already have the structure, whilst it was not set up for the most part for capital investment intentions. We're ready to roll. So in my mind, because of these other catalysts, in the next 12 to 18 months, once Hamilton Lock get away, we see more from Slater and Gordon and those different alternative, DWF in the UK, who was delisted, bought by private equity, ready to sell to another private equity. When we see those succeed in some form or other, I do think other firms will be more open to it.
I totally agree. I think that change is definitely coming, and I think it is a perfect storm, really. And I tend to think if you look at, say, in the UK market in, say, accounting and the role of private equity there, you can see it's definitely coming to shores. There was an article in the Australian Financial Review about, I think, 11 or so law firms with private equity stakes already in this market. So
a lot of them are, and it's alternative ALSPs as well,
for sure.
And that's particularly if you get the larger contracts, you're buying on future past earnings, right? Not future earnings. They want to see that growth, continuity of income.
Yeah, that's right. The certainty of income, the renewal, the
commoditized sales engine, all those wonderful things that you can create, particularly if it's tech-based.
Yeah, through private equity. Speaking of capital, Charles, one of the things you said offline when we were discussing this podcast was, in a brave new world of BD, where a lot of the execution can be automated, there is this view that BD can be the strategic thought leaders on the flow of capital and what opportunities and risks that presents, and really understanding that, which is, often a more economic advisory type role or a broader business role. What's your view on that? Do you think that's been grappled with properly?
Absolutely not. And the same way that Kim talks about on LinkedIn, you talk about PE a lot. I talk about macroeconomics a lot and its applications to legal BD talent. So AI is a very broad term, but I would divide it into two different segments. Firstly, when firms have their data set up such that they can then install AI agents to have more of a diamond-shaped model with more senior operators and talented commercial senior operators that have been essentially overqualified for the work that they've been doing on a day-to-day basis. So they were hired as intelligent, forward-thinking operators, but they weren't able to actually full work in that capacity.
Once they sucked into the execution.
That's it. Although they be highly credible in front of clients, law firms are typically dealing with problems when they arise. So therefore, the partners will engage with the client. My view is that once AI has removed a lot of that execution and streamlined it, that frees up a range of senior people to look then at the other side of AI, which is the global supply chain that's emerging. So if I look at what the beneficiaries of the industrial expansion that we're going to see happen at an exponential rate, Australia is going to be a key beneficiary. Looking at where capital sits is something that if a firm's working with, say, a hedge fund or an investment bank or an asset management firm as one of their clients, then the BDs could be having conversations with those organizations that know where the smart money is sitting and where it's going. My view is that the US is obviously dominant in terms of capital, but the US and China, we're moving into a unipolar world, and there are two races going on, an AI race and a defense and arms race, with more friend-shoring, so to speak, in terms of the supply chain. And if you look at the US, South Korea, Japan, so precision robotics and manufacturing, there's massive amounts of sovereign capital sitting in the UAE and capital recycling that's moving offshore. Saudi as well, the European Union, in terms of capital. Indonesia is a massive growth hub. It's, I suppose, where India was. There's similarities with India. Absolutely. India is said to be a $30 trillion economy by 2040 due to demographics, highly educated English-speaking workforce, increasing internal demand. It's almost like another China growth story. And there are two countries within that allied framework that are going to do very well and power the the chip making, the whole thing. It's Canada and Australia.
The middle powers, as Mark Carney called it.
Yeah. And if you look at the EV supply chain and the and battery supply chain, you need lithium and nickel, and Australia is packed with the stuff. So rather than Australia being an extractor and exporter of raw materials to China, it can become an extractor, refiner, an exporter, but essentially a critical high value component of an extremely important, rapidly expanding global supply chain that's seen as critical. Defense spending is essentially mandated. And then in terms of resources, that's where the capital is flowing. So if BD's freed up to be having conversations that they, not with in-house counsel, but if they're identifying where the capital pools are, where the capital flows, and then what are the downstream effects, so second order effects, third order effects, fourth order effects. So if you're looking at data centers, for example, that are being built down in the Southern Highlands, what about all of the, third order effect might be real estate because of all of the housing being built down there, or the regulation, tax, workplace. There are massive amounts of legal work, and of course disputes will arise as well, but currently a lot of BD is essentially winning work that's come up as a result of a problem or a transaction.
That's right, a problem or a transaction.
You can call it a pursuit as well.
A problem and a dispute.
You can call it a pursuit, but maybe you've been a bit ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
However, if you're essentially working in a commercial intelligence capacity, and therefore coaching your partners around how to engage with their clients, this up here, identifying where the work and the problems could potentially arise, I'm sure that a lot of clients would pay a lot of money and may actually not rebuke the billable hour for a disputes partner to tell them how to avoid disputes in the
Well,
future.
Where BD comes into that, when you start thinking about, well, what is the impact and what does that mean for my practice and my partners, and how do I move along the value chain to be delivering more value? That's exactly what, if you follow the money, what does that impact for me and my practice?
Yeah.
And if I'm honest with you, ask AI.
Yeah.
Just this is the situation. What kind of legal work would come from? It'll tell you, well, that means we need more houses. I mean, what happened when Carmichael Mine was created here in Queensland? Huge increase in, the housing, the jobs, all of it. There was huge opportunities that law firms capitalized on here. Asking AI, exactly, you don't need to know the ins and outs as an economist would, but absolutely.
So it sort of augments and complements your thinking so that you can move into a strategic advisory space. And the other thing that I talk about in terms of, this is a bit of a tangential shift here, guys, but what I talk about in the leadership space is that soft skills are no longer soft skills, because the ability to build rapport and build relationships will be at a premium in a highly commoditized work execution environment, which is for lawyers and for BD professionals. They're both effectively going to have the same forces applied to them.
I think building relationships and also defending relationships as well.
That's a good point, because another guest on the podcast I thought was really interesting said that clients are more quick to move. So you've got the dual game, don't you? You've got to win work and you've got to shore up, defend, and don't be complacent on the work. And that second thing can be lost, particularly because it used to be this, well, they know me now. We've got to try. We're here for life. But it's that world has changed too in terms of clients.
There's a lot of value in long-standing client relationships. There's a lot of equity there, and the most sophisticated firms and three of the top firms that I've worked with for a very long time and have placed dedicated client relationship managers in. Those firms are extremely client-centric and sophisticated in regards to client relationship management. At the same time, you're absolutely right in terms of everything in this world is moving more quickly now. If there are alternative providers who are forward thinking enough to be able to identify problems before they arise, clients, yes, the relationships are important, but they will move if someone can offer them a superior service that's more efficient, more proactive, and more economical, all things considered. So I think, client relationship development, but also client defense and thinking more broadly about the bigger picture. Law firms are developing at different rates, but also there are alternative legal services providers. There are, consulting firms setting up legal arms, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot can change in a few years.
And a lot is changing in a few years.
Some law firms have celebrated their 200th year anniversaries. There hasn't been the incentive to change the model because it's worked for a very, very long time. And generally speaking, law firms' margins are healthy. And if you set your firm up correctly during boom times when there's lots of liquidity circulating around the market, you have a lot of corporate M&A activity, and then litigation, insolvency, restructuring. So it's a brilliant model essentially. So there just hasn't been the incentive to change and to I suppose worry about technological change.
Life is good.
Life's
Life is
good.
good.
But at the same time, I think it was in the early 1900s, vast proportion of people worked in agriculture, and then came along the tractor. And people started wanting to, destroy machines, etc. We've had technological revolutions before. It's just that the rate of change now, this is exponential change. This is happening again because of the model, the partnership model. I think a lot of partners probably think, well, I'm really close to retirement now anyway, so I'll just see it through. If we get bought out, great. There's no incentive to change. I think the most important thing to consider is anyone who is an early stage in their legal career, it will be those who are very good lawyers and also very commercially orientated and curious about AI. So curious to the point of every single day looking at the different updates that are coming through in terms of, which different what is happening in the world of AI specific to legal and their clients as well. But also having an understanding. I mean, I'm biased, but lawyers need to have an understanding of the broader macroeconomy and actually how that impacts them, even if it's a national firm that has nothing to do with US markets or Chinese markets or Japan, for example. Obviously, Asia facing capital in Australia. Having that awareness means that you can anticipate, if you build your understanding of cycles, but also capital rotations, you can anticipate what the headlines are going to be. If you're doing BD work based on headlines, you've missed the boat.
Kim, what about your perspective? That's great. Thanks, Charles.
I agree with the understanding of what's happening in the wider world beyond the headlines, and 100%. It is impacting us in Australia, I think, in a very different way than it probably has done before, and I can definitely see the cycles that are working their way through, particularly in the legal sense. You see what's happening in the US, UK in slightly different guises, and it's starting to, there's a bit of swell here. AI is fundamentally, to again eat my words on our last conversation, it is fundamentally shifting this entire industry, as every industry. I don't think that means that all jobs are going to be gone. I don't think that we're going to lose half of the BD and marketing workforce, but I do think BD and marketing teams within law firms need to upskill, shift mindsets, capabilities quickly, and come back to AI for everything. How can I use this? And it's similar, any kind of reflex. You wouldn't even blink about, I've got to call someone, I'll go get the Refidex out. Like we've moved with the times, right? We just have to move very quickly. I've got this thing. What can AI do for me? Ask AI how it can help you. If we are not doing that for everything and it's our first reflex, we're too slow. And if firms, unfortunately, I said, are looking very much at that, how we're building efficiency into what we deliver to clients. And I think the as a service team are probably a little bit slower on the how are we building this into everything, our workflows, our ways of working, our ways of thinking, our collaboration, all of it. But we absolutely need to be, because the teams of the future will be absolutely fundamentally underpinned by AI and technology with the human power, remember, human in the loop. What is the value I bring then? It's being able to go, okay, I see this trend. I don't exactly know what it means, but I'm going to find out, and I'm going to go to my partner and I'm going to say, here are 3 impacts on our clients we should be thinking about. Do you think we can proactively, and I can go and draft it, i.e. get, some content and get drafted and get lawyers to check it, to send to our client proactively. Already you've cut down what could have taken months in a law firm, again, after we've seen the headlines, to go, actually, we're ahead of the curve. BD has to be adding that level of value. So I think just getting ahead of it.
Yeah.
And I think, so there's a lot of fear around AI taking people's jobs. I think it's a really exciting opportunity if, as Kim said, you use AI and then the time to check things that maybe you don't understand, but also save you a lot of time from an administrative or an executional perspective. And then I'll give you an example of something that I've done with additional time that I've saved, where AI has cut out part of my role. I spent that time doing a body language course so that when I'm interviewing candidates, I can actually pick up when people are telling me the truth, or I can.
That's very cool.
Very devious. I
like it.
It's funny. So that's just one example.
In a sense, I agree. As a mediator and a coach, it's a good thing to know that those people-to-people skills are actually still very much able to survive. They'll take different forms and will play different roles, but as I said, it will elevate some of those skills. Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you so much, Charles. I've had a great time. Actually, really enjoyed it. I'm going to end on this note. I'm going to ask you, you're going to give advice to a 20-year-old self now starting in the market and business development. What's the advice you'd give Kim? What's the advice you'd give Charles?
I have been told many times throughout my career that I create too much change, that I agitate too much, I'm move too fast, and which I don't disagree with. In many cases, I've been called recently a jet, and I have a big engine. I don't know that that's a good thing.
I've been called worse.
Oh, I'll take it. I'll take it. But by that, I mean, I have at times in my career tried to hold myself back from, but I would just say, go love, like just put your foot down and make change and make waves and keep learning. And I think in various roles that I've been at, I've very much focused internally on the role as opposed to going, I'm going to keep learning and growing and evolving and stretching myself. And I get great joy from that. And I didn't do that in many of the roles I was in. I was very internally focused. So I would just say, just put your foot down and go, and don't inhibit yourself and keep learning.
That's fantastic advice, Charles.
I agree with all of that. And I think you can't please everyone, but you need to be memorable.
Yeah, I love that.
You have to be memorable. So to anyone starting out, either in law or BD, understand how capital flows, because capital drives everything. You don't need to have an economics degree, which I have, but you can learn enough. Network as much as you possibly can. It's an investment. You friends often come and go. Your network, especially it's a big country, but it's a small community in Australia.
Very small community.
Even
especially in
globally, it's a
Brisbane.
small community, really.
Brisbane's and globally too. I agree with entirely.
There were coffees that I had 15 years ago, and something came of them 15 years later. Be prepared to make mistakes. They're the best things that can ever happen to you because you learn. It's the only way that you learn.
Do you know, can I just interrupt you there?
Yeah.
I had a wonderful coffee with a brilliant lady this morning, and I said I would share this because it was, she said it and it floored me. Experience is lessons learned from mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah, that's right.
As I said, when I sold that apartment in Brisbane about 3 or 4 years ago.
He learned.
As
He's
we're
got
booming
experience.
pre-Olympics.
Well, they were never going to go up again. And anyway.
And don't look back, Charles.
Don't look back.
But
But it taught me something. Understand strategic relationship development that can bring a commercial outcome to a business. And then I'll end on this. There's a trend in terms of, it's quite fashionable to, not go to university and try and set up a business. Get some commercial maturity under your belt first, and you do that by networking, and you'll secure a role, be a member of a business, and actually develop some an understanding of from more commercially mature people how businesses operate. I did that and then set my business up when I was 27. I'm 40 now. It was one of the best things that I ever did. Getting with the right sort of organization that is going to teach you skills quickly. It's going to be demanding. It's going to test you. You're going to test yourself. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to learn. And then I think for those who feel that they are entrepreneurial after maybe 3, 4, 5 years, go down that path, because there has never been a better opportunity for people who are commercially minded, ambitious, and you've got to let go of your ego, because you've got to be prepared for it to fail.
yes, indeed, you do. I hope that our 20-year-old son who's starting his legal career listens to this, because it's great advice. And I couldn't agree with you more. Weirdly enough, I am more proud as I got older of the 2 businesses that I've helped start. This one now that I've started, and the other one that I started, which merged in DWF. So I agree. To me, the salient lessons in my life have been from that. That's my story too, having a go and having a start. So thank you, Charles.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank
That was
you,
amazing
Damien.
conversation. I've only just met you today, so I look forward to a continuing relationship. Kim, look forward to seeing you around Brisbane, Vegas.
I won't be back again, I think.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that. All the best, guys.
Thanks, Damien.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.